Hey there guys, welcome to a bit of a different video where today I'm not cooking up food but instead serving up knowledge for your brain by teaching you about the origins of Merasmus from Team Fortress 2. Just a quick disclaimer, these are just my findings from looking at the design of the character and what he does. I'm not a developer at Valve, and what I found might just be a huge coincidence, and the designers may never have meant for any of these connections to be made. But with that out of the way, let's carry on. Looking at him, it's obvious to see that he's a wizard, and despite being a mediocre one at best, his design holds more interesting secrets from places you wouldn't quite expect. Starting from the top, Merasmus's hat, the skull island topper, is a ram's skull, with the left horn missing and the right eye intact. The ram's skull design can possibly be inspired by the biblical story known as the Binding of Isaac. It's a story told in the book of Genesis about Abraham sacrificing his son Isaac when instructed to do so by God. A messenger of God stops him, however, and he offers up a ram instead. Seeing how Merasmus has a habit of collecting souls, I feel like there's a little bit of a connection there. While a stretch, the fact that it's a broken ram could also be a reference to Merasmus and hell. Jesus was often referred to as a lamb in the Bible, who had never broken any bones. So Merasmus is like the opposite of Jesus in this case, and him being linked with hell could also be an extension of his line of thinking. With Jesus in heaven, Merasmus in hell. Now Merasmus claims to be of 6,000 years old, meaning his origin could potentially be around the time of the rise and fall of the Sumerian civilization around 400 BC. The Sumer believed in a few gods, and while looking through them I never really found any of them that could line up with Merasmus, so his origin doesn't really come from any of the gods there. However, it is said that Merasmus was in Scotland at a brewing company during the 1800s, so if you look back at Scottish history we can find an area named Scarabrea. I am definitely mispronouncing that, like, wow. But anyways, what's important about this place is that it's theorized to be built in 3200 BC, so there's potential for Merasmus to have lived there for most of his life, which could explain his clothing. The large cloak he wears is quite similar to what Celtic men tended to wear when they weren't fighting. However, there is a noticeable lack of jewellery on him, which the Celts would have typically worn, usually made of bronze or silver. However, the Celts did fish, explaining his string fish heads around his waist. Merasmus living here would also explain why he has a castle in Scotland which carried the Bombonomicon which took Demoman's eye. Speaking of which, while it's pretty obvious what the Bombonomicon is based off of, it is a fusion of the Necronomicon and the bombs. The Necronomicon, of course, is a fictional book in H.P. Lovecraft stories which contains ancient spells and incantations for summoning monsters, but the one in TF2 obviously doesn't summon monsters. Lastly, on to what Merasmus actually is. He claims he's a wizard, however looking at different types of magic users in fiction, he seems to have more in common with a warlock. A warlock is basically a bloke who practices witchcraft. While Merasmus seems to use magic like a typical wizard, him delving into the dark arts like building a haunted carnival and turning it into a burial ground is pretty close to necromancy. Kinda. You know, it's just dead people. But yeah, if you watch this, please let me know if you thought about the editing. I only really made this video to try and improve it for my other videos, which are just nothing to do with histories of wizards and video games released 10 years ago. But yeah, if you liked it, let me know. I might make more of these if they're actually pretty cool to you people. Who knows? If you want more tier 2 content, check out my other content where I made the sandwiches in real life. But more importantly, go check out After Breakfast. He's also made a pretty informative video on Merasmus. But it's more in line with TF2 universe. You know, it's pretty cool. Anyways, join my Discord, follow my Twitter, that's it.